Good evening. Welcome to the City of Opa-locka Virtual Special Commission meeting. This meeting was called by the manager and the commission to tackle a few items related to COVID-19 internal business. So we're looking forward to having this quick conversation. As you know, with special commission meetings, they are dedicated specifically to the items that are on the agenda. So with that, Madam Attorney, could you go through the protocols that govern this virtual special commission meeting?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, pursuant to Executive Order number 20-69 issued by the Office of the Governor, Ron DeSantis, on March the 20th, 2020, municipalities may conduct meetings of their governing boards without having a quorum of its members present physically or at any specific location, and utilizing communications media technologies such as telephonic or video conferencing as provided by Florida Statutes 120.54 5B2. The members of the City Commission appearing remotely for this meeting are Vice Mayor Davis, Commissioners Bass, Commissioner Burke, and Commissioner Kelly, and Mayor Pygott. An opportunity was given for the public to address the commission through the city clerk. And at this time, Madam Clerk, will you please announce whether you received any comments for this meeting?
I haven't received any comments for this meeting.
This meeting is being streamlined live, and as this meeting is a virtual meeting, we would ask that and remind the members of the City Commission that they should use their buttons and other devices to speak so that we have a clear and accurate record. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Madam Attorney. Madam Clerk, we do the roll call.
Commissioner Bass?
I'm here.
Commissioner Burke?
Here.
Vice Mayor Davis?
Here.
Commissioner Kelly?
Present.
Mayor Pygott?
I am here. Commissioner Bass, can you lead us in invocation?
Father, we thank you, we bless you, we honor you today. Father God, we ask you that you will continue to lead, guide, and protect. We ask you, Father God, that your arms of mercy, oh God, be extended, oh God, to us as a nation, Father God. God, we ask you that we will be able to live in peace, Lord God, that you will, at the end of the day, get all the honor, all the glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Chief, could lead us in Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. We have item 5A, Madam Attorney.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, there are certain changes that need to be made to the Whistleblower Protection Act that the City Commission currently has on its books. And there are some necessary reasons for amendments, in addition to the fact that I have been in contact with Miami-Dade County Public Trust, and they have told me that apparently they have been trying for some time to let the city know about certain things that needed to be revised. And so I am, in addition to the amendments that are here before you today, we hope to have a full understanding of what other things need, in the opinion of the public trust, need to be looked at so that they can have some review authority as it's set forth herein. Apparently, when this was passed previously, it was done.
Madam Attorney. Yes. Could you read the item into the record?
I apologize. Yes. An ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Opa-locka, Florida, amending Chapter 23 of the City of Opa-locka's Code of Ordinances entitled Employee Protection Whistleblower Act to allow for an impartial administrative review process within the city for whistleblower complaints, providing for severability, conflict and repealer, inclusion in the code, and providing for an effective date.
And this is a public hearing item, correct?
Yes, it is.
Madam Clerk, do we have any?
It is on first reading, so.
Yeah. Do we have any public comments or public hearing for this item?
No, Mr. Mayor, and I just want to make a correction because on the agenda I have sponsored by the city manager, but I actually just noticed it's sponsored by the city attorney.
Okay. All right. So it's corrected. We don't have any public comments. Madam Attorney, Do you want to continue your presentation, or should we move to put a motion out and then? You can take
Yes,
it?
if you would, Mr. Mayor.
All right, do I have a motion for this ordinance?
Move it.
Moved by Commissioner Kelly,
Second.
second by Commissioner Bass. Madam Attorney, you can continue with your introduction of this item.
Pretty much these are necessary changes that need to be made, not only from my review of the whistleblower statute and laws, but also from communications with Miami-Dade County and so Public Trust Ethics Commission. So I would ask that we are able to have this move forward, and any other information that I need to update you all on pursuant to further discussions with the Ethics Commission, I can bring those to the next commission meeting where this issue is on the agenda.
All right, the floor is open for discussion. Any discussion on this item?
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner Kelly.
this is first reading, so I'll address my concerns or whatever with the attorney before the next reading for the sake of time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on this item? Madam Attorney, I do have a few questions because I know that the city of Opa-locka has had quite a few whistleblower complaints coming out over the past few years, and it's based upon various levels. Some have been with staff, some been on director's level, and some has been on the city appointee level. Based upon this legislation, it identifies the city manager to select people to review. What happens when, let's say, the city manager may have a whistleblower complaint? Based upon this legislation, will it be any unfairness that the city manager is actually appointing the people on this committee?
You will see that from the very beginning of the document, it does say that it can be reported up to you, to the city manager, or to your designee. So it does allow for some opportunity, and that language was in there previously, and so that was left. In terms of creating a process for that, we can certainly look at that the next time if the issue is directed at the city manager as an issue. We can look at perhaps the risk, person who's over risk being involved with that process. So we'll look at that, and I'll be happy to talk with Miami-Dade County Public Trust about that issue as well. One of the things I did find out was that they do have a file, and it was done pursuant to legislation that Miami-Dade County actually enacted, that the cities have to put forth their special programs and send their ordinances to the Miami-Dade County Ethics Commission. And so they do have a directory of some sort. Not all cities have done that yet, but I will take a look at that directory and I'll see how that issue is addressed before the next meeting, and see how we can make some changes to address your issue, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. And the other point, currently, do we have, how many open whistleblower complaints?
Well, they are confidential, so I'm not, I can't give you an answer right now.
All right. All right. Any other discussion on this item?
Mr. Mayor?
Vice Mayor Davis?
Just a quick question. I believe one of these items was actually outlined in the operational audit by the Auditor General's office. With the revision of this ordinance or the update that staff will be providing, would it address that specific finding if staff could kind of speak to that?
I don't have an answer for that right now, Vice Mayor, but I can check on that during the meeting, and I'll be happy to follow up with you after this meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion on this item? Madam Clerk, roll call.
Commissioner Burke,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Davis,
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly,
Yes.
Commissioner Bass,
Yes.
Mayor Pygott.
Yes.
Motion passes first reading.
All right. Madam Attorney, you have read the second item.
An ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Opa-locka, Florida, amending Chapter 8, Article 1 to create new sections 8.6 entitled Face Mask or Face Coverings during pandemic-related public health emergency that threatens the life, health, and safety of residents, providing for incorporation of recitals, providing for an effective date.
This is a public hearing item. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments on this particular item?
No, Mr. Mayor, we don't have any.
All right, do I have a motion?
Move it.
Moved by Commissioner Bass,
Second.
second by Vice Mayor Davis. Do want to just take a moment to kind of introduce the reason why we are here today. This is a very significant step that the City of Opa-locka is taking in response to COVID-19, and we as a commission. And for the past few weeks, we have been discussing and debating about how we can respond to this COVID-19 and stop the spread of this virus within our community. After reviewing quite a few CDC guidelines, the state of Florida, Department of Health, it is widely known that mask wearing by individuals that have COVID-19 has a significant chance or rate of reduction of transmission of the virus. Due to the fact that not everyone that has COVID-19 know they have it, one of the precautions that has been advised by executive orders throughout the nation in Miami-Dade County is that people cover their face when entering businesses and in other areas. In the city of Opa-locka, we're seeking to take a step further with that to ensure that people are protected. One of the main questions that we have and we debated about in regards to this is it okay for people to come into people's faces, children, people? Is it okay? Is it right for them to do that? Whether they know or they don't know if they have the disease. And we want to make sure that that is not right within the city of Opa-locka, that people can be fined and people know that it is wrong to go into someone else's face or somebody from another household face without covering your mouth. So we want to make sure that we are protecting each other, and we want to make sure that the citizens feel confident that people do not have the right, whether they have COVID-19 or not, to come up in their children or themselves face. So we're putting forth this item to pass it, to institute it, so that people know very clearly that this is serious, this is a pandemic going on, and whether or not anybody believe it or not, we believe it, and we want to protect our loved ones and our community. So we're moving forward with this item at the moment. And there are a few amendments that we discussed at the last commission meeting. And I want to propose those at the moment so that we can vote, add them to the record, and then we can continue the discussion. Is that all right, my colleagues? Want to move with these amendments first?
Can we do discussion first, please? We seconded, we were going to a discussion phase, right?
Yeah. So, usually the sponsor, right now I've been letting the sponsor introduce the item. So I just introduced it. but I know that we all, as a group, we discussed amendments that we said we were going to put forth and discuss even further. So we can discuss the item 2 and then go to the amendments if that's what you would like, Commissioner Burke.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Mhm.
You know what, I was looking at that, and then I seen you asked the staff for comments, and Mr. Anthem, the budget director, I don't know whether you've seen his comments, but there was a lot of stuff on there that we left out. There was a lot of stuff in his comments. I don't know whether you got a chance to look at his comments that left a lot of thoughts. And I just want to bring that to the forefront because there was a lot of things that he brought out that I guess we didn't see. And I think that's something is this the first reading of the
This is the final reading, so we want to have everything out right now.
final
So,
reading?
yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, I'm through.
All right. Do you want to bring those comments? Because I'm not sure what you're referring to. So either yourself or I forgot who you said made the comments, but whoever made those comments, if they're on the phone, then I would like to hear them.
Mr. Robert Anthem, our budget director, he was one of the employees that, remember, we had asked for comments from the staff about this ordinance, and he had a lot of good and strong stuff. Could you let him if he wants to
Okay.
come to the front?
All right, Mr. Manager.
Mr. Mayor, so I forwarded an email of staff comments. I want to say either late last week or early this week to the commission in regards to staff comments and significant concerns in regards to the mask ordinance. So I sent this to you guys beforehand. I will have Robert speak on those as he sent the email to me and I forwarded it over to the commission. Robert?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm quickly pulling up my notes just so I don't misspeak. Bear with me 1 second, please. I tell you what, rather than to tie up, no, the points I tried to make is there were certain things in there that I thought did not rise to the level of an ordinance. To me, an ordinance is something that should be enforceable, and included things such as saying that you know, if you have a visitor in your household, that person has to be wearing a mask, and ditto for a car. And I understood that to be policy. I understood that to be recommendation, but I wondered if something like that, and there are other things like that, that should actually be included in the ordinance itself. So that was one point. A more generic point I made was that the CDC is really emphasizing safe distancing. They were very quick to point out that a mask is not a substitution for safe distancing. And I just wondered if the ordinance might not be more enforceable if it used a little bit more emphasis on safe distancing. And then when safe distancing was not possible, a mask needed to be worn. And at that point, it really could be enforced. Because, I mean, for example, it said, if you're out exercising, it said jogging or walking. And that raised the issue if somebody's walking down the street, are they out for exercise? Or are they doing something else? And somebody's going to have to make a call on that. So I don't have all my notes in front of me, but I was just concerned that it might be a little too stringent in terms of being enforceable.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else?
Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right. So with that, Commissioner Burke, do you have any amendments you want to propose based upon Mr. Anathan's comments?
No, Mr. Mayor, I just thought, since we had asked for comments, I just thought that it would only be fair for him to voice them. No, I don't have any amendments. Thank you.
Okay. All
Mr.
right.
Mayor.
It's the,
Cool.
Either
Uh,
me, you can call me or the vice mayor and pick one. It's your choice, Mayor.
All right. Get Vice Mayor.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to kind of, I guess, speak to one of Robert's concerns. I did have a chance to review the email, and I did want to point out one item, one aspect of the ordinance. I know it speaks to like specific rules or enforcing the mask ordinance, I guess, within someone's homes. So I guess it speaks to, I guess, members in the house and kind of requiring them to wear masks and that sort of thing. I know that was one of the points of concerns that was pointed out by Mr. Anathan, that would be difficult to enforce. So I don't know if you know, if we could agree on maybe amending the item in some way, because just like the curfew ordinance, you know, we were kind of straddling the line, in my opinion, of many of our many of our freedoms in this country, you know, that are tied to the Constitution, such as the right to petition, right to protest, right to assemble, you know, those sort of liberties, and just don't want to you know, put something in place that that I guess challenges those liberties in any way. So I don't know if an amendment can be proffered. I, for one, you know, think that's, you know, an aspect of the law that would be difficult to enforce, and in my opinion, would create problems and enforcement issues. Given the state of our police department, I wouldn't be in favor of the law with written with that information specifically that speaks to that.
Mr. Mayor.
All right. Are you done, Vice Mayor Davis?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Manager.
Based on just reviewing staff comments, reviewing the ordinance in a little bit more in detail, looking at the enforcement issue in regards to regards to our special master here in the case compared to a fine being paid to the city. I think there's still a lot of open issues in regards to the ordinance. I don't feel it's ready for prime time. I don't feel it's ready for passage tonight because there are a lot of unanswered questions in regards to it. And I'll let the city attorney speak on some of those things.
Okay. It was scheduled for tonight. All right, go, Madam Attorney. You have some other items.
Well, John and I have been talking about this issue and the fact that neither one of us thinks that it's really at a point where it should go forward tonight. And that's for, I guess, a number of different reasons. He has some different reasons and I have some reasons, and you know, and obviously you all are the policymakers, but there's still a lot of work to be done. There have been some thought about trying to do it and enforce it in the same way that you would do red light cameras, for instance. And so the city doesn't really have a process or a way to do that, in that the red light cameras are done by an outside vendor. And so you all don't have a real process to be able to do that. And then there are a number of other different issues, including but not limited to, you know, you don't really have any other area out there that's doing anything like this similarly. We think that enforcement might be an issue, in addition to all of the other things that we had talked about and revisited or visited with other issues. I mean, just in terms of just it being burdensome for a population of people that will probably not be able to afford it. You're going to end up with special magistrate cost. So we can certainly, you know, do whatever the commission feels comfortable with, but I think collectively, your manager and I both feel that this is not something that should go forward at this time in the way that it's written.
Mr.
Mayor?
Madam Attorney, there was those thoughts communicated to any of the sponsors before tonight?
I'm not sure whether the manager communicated that or not, but those are our thoughts, and we've talked about it over a period of several days, and I don't know. I guess this is the time where we can communicate it to you. So that is our thought. Obviously, you all, like I said, you all are the policymakers. You can go forward in any way that you feel comfortable. We just, together and thinking about it, and I think this is probably the first issue since we've both been here that we both certainly, are definitely kind of on a page with letting you all know that collectively, I mean, we may have, thoughts that are not communicated to you all that we go through in terms of process and legislation, but this is I think the first time both of us are willing to at least go on the record and let you know we just don't think this is ready tonight. But that decision is up to you all.
So for future reference, I would strongly recommend that manager and attorney inform commissioners their thoughts before the actual meeting so that we can take that in consideration and move this forward. We've been discussing it for weeks now. And we actually had an issue with the notice, which delayed it even further. So to get to this point and hear these thoughts today when we're looking to move this forward after we spent weeks of talking, going through various amendments and discussions. We paid for the advertisement of this. To hear that now, it's a little frustrating. As we've continued to reaffirm, we want to make sure that this is solid, that this works, and that we have things in place to move that. And we've been willing to take our time with this so that we can get everything right. So due to the fact that we can only make amendments to this item at the moment, I will go through those amendments, but before we do that, the issues with the red light camera level of enforcement, where's the plan for that? When will we receive the plan for that to make sure it does get executed? When it comes to enforcement, what exactly are we talking about are the problems with enforcement that will make this so big of an issue? When it comes to the special magistrate, have we implemented the virtual protocols, and where are we in those processes? Those are things that we actually brought up at the last week's meeting that I know personally myself, I haven't heard any updates about until today and on this public setting where it's brought up as an issue for us to move forward. So I would definitely like to see that information very clearly and not just get general comments, but very clear things that we can tackle and make sure this works. This is something that has been implemented in cities and municipalities across the country. We may be the first ones in the state of Florida doing that, but there is precedence for us for doing this. And if we were able to implement an ordinance for people with sagging pants, I'm pretty sure we can figure out how to protect our residents from a viral disease that can be slowed down if people wear masks. So we can have those considerations. That would be great. Before we go into the amendments, I will continue to have the floor open for this discussion. But I do want to make sure that we do get those amendments in, because I think one of them addressed what Mr. Annington, part of what Mr. Annington brought up. So floor is still open for discussion before we get to those amendments we discussed last week.
Mr. Mayor?
Commissioner Kelly?
No, I'll yield. Vice Mayor came up on the screen.
Are you? Okay, go ahead, Vice
Yeah,
Mayor.
just really quick, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to point out another item that was outlined in the email. There's also a point of, I guess, confusion around who should wear a mask. In the ordinance, we outline employees, clients, and customers, but we really don't speak to, I guess, our everyday residents. So it really only speaks to employee, clients, and customers that enter in business. So as we go forward with amendments, that we could kind of touch on that issue as a discussion item. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had concerns regarding the enforcement and the financial side, as well as how we're in place. My understanding, I thought from one of these workshops, we will be following the same process as we do with the special master for code violations and such. So I don't know if that maybe that's changed, because I thought that was kind of the mindset or the structure we were following. So maybe we got a different process or something. The other thing I did not recall, and I could be wrong, in the escalation of the fines going from 100, 150, the third one was all the way to 250. I thought it was just went up $50 incrementally until they got to 200. I noticed it goes up to 250, which is not something that I was really favoring. My only question, I'll hear the amendments, because I saw the email from the manager via his department directors as well. I just want, at the end of the day, we're going to enact something that it's enforceable. So I'll wait to hear these amendments, because maybe they'll help in some enforcement. But obviously, with the manager and the attorney not ready to sign off on it, I'm of this opinion, and I'm not a co-sponsor, but I'll just say from my perspective, if I sponsor something, I don't want to let it get to the second reading, this far down the road advertisement, and then have 2 out of the 3 main staff folks have that many challenges. So I don't know where the breakdown was, but I would hope in the future, because we've already expended a lot of time and energy. And I'm just saying that in the future, if I would have an item, I wasn't sponsoring this one, but I don't know what happened with the communication, but hopefully that doesn't occur, because it doesn't look good for us to be debating. And obviously we still got some work to do. We put this out, we speeded it up in terms of making sure that advertised. So I'm kind of frustrated just about that process, but I'll wait to hear the amendments and see how my colleagues feel, the 3 sponsors. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to try and, I guess, share the screen so that we can see where these amendments go. I know one of them I'm a little confused about where it will go. All right. So the first amendment, I'm gonna go through the easy ones. The first one that we discussed was an amendment to amend the age from 2 years to 5 years. So would someone like to make a motion for that amendment?
Move it.
Moved by Vice Mayor Davis,
Second.
second by Commissioner Bass. Any discussion on the amendment? Right. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Commissioner Kelly.
Yes.
Commissioner Bass.
Yes.
Commissioner Burke.
I'm sorry, I was muted. Yes.
Vice Mayor Davis.
Yes.
Mayor Pygott.
Yes.
Motion on the amendment passes.
All right. The other one was the end date. And Madam Attorney, if you can provide some clarity on exactly where that will go. Well, we wanted to make an amendment to revisit this item upon Miami-Dade County removing its emergency order 1920 that requires a face mask in public environments.
There is no way, can you hear me, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yes, there is no way to address it that way. You'd have to call it up and amend the ordinance. There's no way for us to put something in there that stops and starts again or under these circumstances. So you'd actually have to amend the ordinance if you choose to. Now you do have the, you could add some language in that, well, what you have in it already is you have it supposed to be just during the time that the pandemic exists. And under those circumstances, you know, you could have some language that says when this ends. You know, you could have some language, we could add some language that says to extend as so long as Miami-Dade County, you know, has declared an emergency due to, you know, a pandemic status. Because remember, this is just for coverings during pandemic-related public health emergencies that threaten life, health, and safety. So in its own terms, it has, you know, a limit. So I guess just to answer your question, we could add, you know, so long as Miami-Dade County. I mean, you could track it with the county. So if the county changes, or if the county, you know, enters into determines that it's done, it wants to reinstitute after phase 3 some other emergency period, we could just fall in line with whatever Miami-Dade County does. But there's no way to say, you know, when they end it, we will do the way that you phrased it.
So during our workshop last week, I believe yourself brought up the fact that we needed to put some type, how we end it, and we debated about what will be the trigger for that, for us to revisit this, on whether or not we need to end this, because we wanted further clarification than the pandemic. We brought up the fact that this pandemic is going on now, and who declares that the pandemic ends, and what was the authority that we were going over to address this pandemic. And as a commission, with yourself, we came to the conclusion that we would revisit the item when the emergency order for Miami-Dade County 1920 is released. So
right, my
asking where exactly would we put that in here, so we can put forth that amendment and vote upon it, so that in this ordinance, it requires us as a government to revisit the item on whether or not to put it in, declare it into the pandemic and the face mask wearing when Miami-Dade County releases that order.
Right. My understanding, Mr. Mayor, was we were talking about having a conversation about when we would end it, not we are going to bring it up again, not some language that would trigger us to bring up this, and then we have a conversation, then we end it. The ordinance is what it is. It's intended to be a permanent effect. But what we can do is you all can discuss how you want to end it. So if you want Miami-Dade County's emergency ordinance to trigger the ending of it, then that's the language that we can put in here, and we can put it at the end of the ordinance. And the language, you know, I'll be able to find a place for it. The clerk is on a different page. Let me see if I can pull it up on my own here. We could put it under specifically under section 4 would probably be a good fit for it. And it would, you know, it would end upon such time that Miami-Dade County terminates its emergency ordinance, any emergency ordinance, because it's any emergency declaration, because it's not just for this one, it's for anyone that will be declared from now and into the future.
I believe we discussed as a commission 1920 because that is the emergency order from Miami-Dade County that requires that all people in public spaces and businesses must require a mask.
You may be
So
misunderstanding.
we
Right, you
believe
may be
that at the
misunderstanding.
time with Madam Attorney, we believe that at the time, if the county, which has many medical experts and others, is going to release the fact that we as a community all across my millions of people do not need to wear masks anymore in visiting public, that will be a time in which we as a smaller community should revisit whether or not this works for us. Because sometimes we believe that this pandemic is affecting our community at a higher rate than others throughout Miami-Dade County. So one of the reasons why we didn't want to automatically end it is because we wanted to evaluate the data within 2 weeks of Miami-Dade County ending it so that we can make sure that it is appropriate for us to declare that. So that's what.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, there was no discussion that I recall about 2 weeks, but that might be something that you want to do. Remember, this is for going into the future. This is not just about this pandemic. This is for any pandemic that you will have going into the future. This would be triggered. And what I was saying in the last meeting is you have to decide how you want that to end. There's no way to kind of stop it and bump it, and then 2 weeks after that, you can't write the legislation like that. So just imagine this is not about whatever the number is of the ordinance or of the emergency declaration that has been declared by the county this time. This is forever. And so whatever it is that you want to rely upon, it could be the city declaring it. It could be the county declaring it. It could be a state declaration of an emergency, right? So whatever it is that you all want to rely upon to stop it, that's what we need to put in here. And that would be permanent. It has nothing, it's not tied to this specific emergency. It's for any emergency, and you have to decide how you want to end it. And I don't know if I'm being clear enough, but that was my understanding of what we were talking about before, not about any specific, this time or anything. I mean, and maybe what you brought up just then about 2 weeks, maybe that's an idea. Any declaration that's terminated by Miami-Dade County, within 2 weeks, the city shall evaluate, or, we can, maybe write something like that. But remember, this is intended to be permanent and for any pandemic.
Since it looks like we're going to defer this item, we will save this amendment for further conversation so that we can be clear on that. But we will review the record because this was an item that we actually, at this point, we discussed quite a bit. That's why we were exact about 1920 emergency order. So we will revisit that item. Moving forward with the immediate payment, we wanted to give the option for people to immediately pay, just like they would with code violations and code violations and a red light camera. So we wanted to amend section 5, saying that including that instead of everything being referred to the special magisters, which can create a backload, that people have the option to pay it. So the amendment right now that I see on the floor is shall be, and this is the language you want to read, shall be referred to the city's special magistrate for adjudication or available for immediate pay according to the city rules therein. That is the second amendment that we, third that we proposed. Due to the conversation that you're saying that's something we can't do right now, or we shouldn't amend it, Mr. Madam Attorney?
Mr. Mayor, I'll speak on that. First, the question that was asked, first, you put it 100% correct. What you said is 100% correct. One correction is code enforcement violations go through the special master. They're not immediate. It's not immediate payment. The only thing that's immediate payment that we have are red light tickets. So we have a specific vendor that collects that. My question was a legal one. Is there any other municipality that collects immediate payments in regards to violations and the municipality actually collects it themselves? And is there anything in law that stops a municipality from collecting a payment directly? Also, we need some type of language that collecting a payment admits guilt, so somebody can't go to the special master, then request a refund of the monies because the special master adjudicated a certain way. Or is there an appeal process where it can be appealed to the circuit court? So those are questions that were Mayor, by the way, were brought up last week. And me and the city attorney have had multiple conversations, but we concluded our conversation today on the matter. So those are the questions that I have, because I want to make sure it's legal for us to actually do that. Because red light cameras are set up a specific way. So that goes to a third party handles that, so there has to have to be some language in here that once somebody pays, they're admitting that they are guilty of the offense, so they can't try to request a refund on the back end.
Okay. All right. This is another item I'm going to wait till we defer as again. I wish that we as a commission, and especially the sponsor of these items, were made aware of these questions and concerns beforehand so that we could have considered this and worked these things out before we got to this point. So I will defer that item at the moment until we discuss further. Before I open up the floor for any other discussion items, I want to reaffirm some things that were brought up by the Vice Mayor Davis and also Mr. Anderson's email. In particular, it was talking about the social distancing. And within the actual ordinance, it does say, hold on, let me see if I can go to it. That's not exceptions. All right, so number one, it does say that all persons, whether employees, customers, clients, businesses, which means all people, period, this applies to. So everyone will have to wear a mask. And then when it comes to in people's household, this specifically says in section 3B that this is done so in public places within the city of Opa-locka. So this is not in people's personal property, personal background. This is within public places. So that addresses the who should wear masks and social distancing. I am open to a conversation. I guess we can lead this since we're going there now. If we want to put if someone is within 6 feet of another person, that they must put their mask on. So that's something we can consider. But I want to be clear that this item is about anybody and everybody outside of their households that are interacting with people must wear a mask to prevent the spread of this virus, either intentionally or unintentionally. So with that, to my colleagues and my co-sponsors, I believe we should defer this item and get the manager and the attorney to work through these things and provide a memo so that we're very clear about their understanding of how we can move, and then discuss this one more time to finalize all the amendments, which we thought we did last week, so that we can come back during second reading and pass this legislation. So that's what I would suggest. I would love to hear from my colleagues.
Mr. Mayor, before you go forward, I just
Madam
want
Attorney?
to put on the record that legally, I don't see any impediment to moving forward. The issue that we're concerned about is a process for doing so. And so that's what would have to be created. And that process right now is not clear how that would happen, either financially, through financial things, through how it will be set up, through a process of your special magistrate, how it will be collected, what processes it would go through. That's what you really need time to get in place. And I don't know, if 2 weeks or less than 2 weeks, because we're doing this as a special meeting, would have really been enough time for your management to put those things in place. And so I just want to make it clear that legally, I don't see it. We can structure it. I researched it. I'm not concerned about the legal aspects of what you're talking about. I'm concerned about functionally how it will work. And I think that's the concern that your manager has as well, how it will work. And that is being considered in the midst of all the other things that are being considered related to COVID-19 and everything else that's going on right now. So that's what needs to be flushed out, and that's what is not clear. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for the record, I want to make sure that we as a commission, especially the sponsors of this item, have been very patient about this, because we want to make sure that it is on point. So that's why I personally, with the relevation during this meeting, that it is not ready, and there's still some gaps, and we still have 2 amendments that we discussed that doesn't seem to be ready to be finalized and put into this document. We want to make sure all those are in there. But I can now hear what you're saying, that there may be a 3rd amendment that will break down when it actually goes into effect. So in looking at the last line of this ordinance, it says it shall become effective upon passage, approval, publication, or otherwise. So it seems as though that after yourself and the manager create a memo that details the concerns that were raised in this meeting, and put together a plan for the systems and enforcement, that we will propose an amendment that abides by that plan, so that we know that by this certain date, the city will be ready to enforce, and that it will go into effect when the city is ready to do so. So thank you for that. My colleagues, any other questions, comments, concerns, and any thoughts on deferring this item until we receive that information? Commissioner Bass?
Thank you. Would you scroll down for me at A? Yeah, right here. Okay, right here where it says at all times by persons over the age of, where we want it to be 5. So if it's going to be read that way, it's basically saying at the age of 6, because it says of the age of 5. You see what I'm saying? So it would be 5, it would be 6.
Over the age of, that's a good catch. Okay. All right.
That's it. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. So to my the co-sponsors, Vice Mayor Davis and Commissioner Bass, do we want to defer this item until we get that information from the manager and attorney?
Mayor Paget?
Yes.
Just to err on the side of caution, we would have to. It's not my willingness to do so right now based on the information that we're getting right now, but because of the situation that we're in and we need to make sure that it's done and done correctly, we would have to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'll be in favor of deferring the item. It appears to be a little bit unready, so let the administration take it back, revise it, and bring it back before us.
All right, Madam Clerk, due to the advertising requirements, do we do that do we need to defer this at to a date certain, or can we defer it and then call upon and then schedule it once we receive this information from the manager and the attorney?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So, and if you're going to defer to a date specific, then I don't need to re-advertise. But if there's no date provided at this meeting publicly, then I will need to re-advertise for the public hearing.
Okay. All right. So if we were to bring this up at the date certain of the 4th, well, the last commission meeting in June, which would be the 24th, which gives all of us basically 3 meetings to hash this out. The commission meeting on Wednesday, we can talk about it during the reports. The Thursday workshops on the 11th and 18th to have it ready on the 24th. Madam Attorney and Mr. Manager, does that give us enough time to at least get the language right and also the time frame amendment?
Well, from my standpoint, Mr. Mayor and Vice Mayor Commissioners, I can do my part in very short period of time. It's the process of how it will work that is what's going to take the time. So for me and what I have to do, I can do it the day that I get the information. It's making sure that it actually works the way that you intend it to work is the issue right now.
Okay.
So that's really, in other words, it's a question. It's not really a question. It's more of a question for the manager, understanding whether this can be rolled out shortly after it's passed.
All right. And based upon what I'm saying is that we will put a date certain based upon the time frame that the manager provides for implementation. So Mr. Manager, are you able to, within the next 2 weeks, provide us a timeline in which what we would need to put in place for this to be effective?
Yes, sir. You can place it on the 24th. If it's placed on the 24th, I will ask for an implementation date sometime in July. So you need to change the implementation section to immediate to a date in July, but we can discuss that between now and then.
Okay. All right. Well, we will defer this item to the regular commission meeting on Wednesday, June 24th at 7 o'clock to finalize these details. Let's not do this again. You have any, so there aren't any other items for this special commission meeting where we can only discuss these items. That means we are done. Let me double check the agenda. Yes. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move it.
Moved by Commissioner Kelly. Second by Vice Mayor Davis. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good evening. Please make sure you attend our regular commission meeting next week on 7 o'clock on Wednesday, and also our next COVID-19 meeting, which will be next week at 5:30 on Thursday. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.